So let's put ourselves back 2,000 years ago. There's no Walmart, there's no Home Depot, no Sherwin-Williams. What are we going to need to be able to make a really high quality, long lasting paint? There are kind of 4 basic ingredients that you need for any paint recipe: a pigment, a binder, an emulsifier, and an extender. We'll start with the pigment first. So a pigment is any colored material. It could be organic or inorganic, and that's going to be what gives your paint its color. So examples of organic pigments could be blood or berries, any sort of fruits or anything like that, where inorganic pigments are going to be more rocks and minerals, things like that. You could at home play around with like strawberries or different berries and stuff, but what we're going to be using today is some crushed up ochre. So ochre are different minerals and rocks that occur naturally. These examples actually came from an ochre mine in eastern Wyoming near Guernsey. So I'm going to start adding pigment to my workstation here. I'm just using a paper plate. You can use whatever. Be advised, this could get a little messy, so doing it outside or putting plastic down underneath is always a good option. You don't need a whole lot. So this is the red ochre, what it looks like. It's nice and powdery, really, really fine. And then we're also going to use some of this powdered charcoal. I got it from a craft store. And we'll just put a little bit to make some black paint over here. What you can do next is you can take and just add a little bit of water. You don't have to measure it out. Just add a little bit to the plates or whatever surface you're working with. And then you want to mix that around. And this will work, but essentially what you've done is you've created a watercolor paint. And so while a watercolor paint will work, it's not going to give you a really long-lasting paint that sticks onto the surface. You have to remember some of these pictographs are hundreds of thousands of years old, so you really need something that's going to make these colors, this pigment, stick or adhere to the rock surface. So the next thing that you need to add to these watercolors is what's called a binder. You need something that's going to kind of bring all these pigment molecules together and make it be able to adhere to the rock surface. So Native Americans had several different things that they could have used as binders. Blood would work, sap from trees or plants would work, egg whites from birds' eggs, and then also animal fat. Now, if you've got a frozen deer leg in your freezer, or if you want to go get bone marrow from the butcher, you can do that. More power to you. But what I'm going to be using today is something that most of you probably have in your house, and that's just lard. Right? So this is just pig fat. So I'm going to add just a little bit of lard to each of these mixtures. Like so. So the next thing you'll want to do is you'll want to try to start mashing the lard around, trying to get this to basically bring all of this paint together. Your hands might get a little bit messy during this process. But one thing you'll start to notice, and some of you may have already guessed this, is that you have a hard time getting the oil and the water to mix together, right? Oil and water don't want to go together. And so you're really going to have a hard time making this being a really nice, fluid paint. So in order to get the oil and the water to mix together, you really need one more key ingredient, and that's what's called an emulsifier. An emulsifier is something that you add that allows the water and the oil to mix together. We're going to use just regular old dish soap for this purpose. And so when we add this dish soap, we should see pretty clearly a change happen that allows the lard, the oil, start to mix with the water, which is the extender for our paint. So you might be asking yourself, did Native Americans have soap? And the answer is yes. Some of you may be familiar with a plant called the yucca. The yucca is also known as soapweed. In fact, this plain species of yucca is called soapweed yucca. And there's all kinds of chemicals in them called saponins that basically act as that kind of soapy ingredient. Pretty soon the oil and the water will begin to mix and kind of dissolve together, and you just keep working at it until you have kind of the consistency that you like. This one's a little bit watery right now, so if you wanted to, you could maybe add in some more fat and some more soap to really help it be well mixed. But really it's up to you. This is kind of part of the fun sciencey part of this, is you get to do trial and error and make it your own. So what you'll kind of want to look for to know when your paint is ready, you want it to still be liquid. You want to be able to put the paint on a paintbrush, but you don't want any large chunks of the lard or whatever fat you're using still in there. So you want it to be really well emulsified, and you're able to pick it up with a paintbrush and work with it. So once you've got your lard, your water, your powdered pigment, and your soap together, you should have a really nice fluid paint. And like I said, if your mixture looks a little too goopy, you might add some more water, or if it's too fluid, it's too watery, you can add in some more fat. So you can really play around with it and make it the way you want to. Once you've got your paint ready, you can use it to paint on a canvas or some heavy-duty paper perhaps, or maybe you've got some rocks in the garden that you'd like to decorate.